Hello, I'm like 5 seconds early, so we're gonna wait. No, okay. The weather finally like came back to a normal here. It's not no longer so warm and humid, so I could finally like open up the window. I hate having the window closed. Anyway, I'm just like doing some chatting there at the first, so just can give a chance for people to join in. But always stream at the same time. You should know by then. What I want to talk about today, like as you can tell by the title, is I want to go back on the Basic Expert interview that I did with Jeffro Johnson on Monday. If you haven't seen it, I put the link in the description below. It was a good interview, very interesting, and there was a lot of drama around that interview, and there still is. But you look at the interview, and they fucking talked about the game. They didn't talk about anything political. They didn't talk about any of this drama. They exchanged idea about how to run your game of D&D, which is what, we make those channel. That's what it should be about. Sometimes I do talk politics when it's politics related to the game, like when a game company did something that did involve in politics, or like an important creator or commentator. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But what I want to talk about is how to run, like how to play RPGs and how to run the game. Hey, Matt Berenger, how you doing? Nice seeing you. Nice seeing you too, Alternative News Network. Good evening. I guess you must be like on the other side of the world there. I guess you could be in Europe, or Australia would be night. Whatever. So I watched the interview with. I watched it live on Monday night. I watched it back sped up this morning just to prepare, just to have like the idea fresh in my mind what I want to talk about. And so they expressed the idea of the OSR, like, and what the BrOSR, sorry, not to be confused with the OSR, because apparently that's a big deal nowadays. Like oh man, I don't fucking care. Those guys, Jeffro Johnson, and we see them a lot on Twitter, like D-Dubs and Daddy Warping. It's like they have like this. Maybe I'm associating people that don't want to be. I don't know. I'm not involved in the drama. I don't care. But what they talk about, they're gonna talk about like all the 1-1 time. So if there's a week that goes between session, there's a week that passed in the game world as well. So if it's winter in the real world, it's winter in the game. If it's raining that's something they talk about a lot about. Like if it's raining in where the GM is, it's raining where the characters in games are. I'll do those questions. Nice seeing you. And they talk about this always on campaign in a way where, like, between session, the player can still have their character do stuff. They can send note and message to the GM, and then like this is what they, because the time keep going even though they're not engaged in play, then they can still, their character can still do stuff, and that can be solved with a note and stuff like that. They talk about how the world doesn't stop when the PCs are not around, and they make a big point about playing rule as written. Like, don't house rule, don't do session 0 where you define what you're gonna do, what you're gonna decide, which rule we're gonna follow, which we're not gonna follow. They talk about running a game without prep, because you don't know who's gonna show up, you don't know what's gonna happen, you don't know where the player want to go, so don't prep too much. Hey, hello Rick, how you doing? And I got to admit that listening to this interview for me was a bit frustrating, because sometimes we and I didn't get involved in that too much, because I'm not a snob. Like, you play your games your way, I don't fucking care. Like, sometimes you want to play a game in a way I don't like. If you're having fun that way, like, that's good for me. Like, I don't, it doesn't take anything away from me. I'm not the one to say, oh, your game is trash. But there's a lot of idea that are presented by the BrOSR, like their novel or like their rediscovery. There's stuff we've been talking about for a long time or done forever. Like, I know, like, and I don't want lump people in too much, but from what I understand, it seemed to be the same for like Black Lodge Gaming, or for somebody like Shonner. Shonner goes much further than most of us, and also he doesn't do campaign sort of thing that won't apply. And I'm sure Rick there in chat would be the same for him as well. But we do promote that the world keep moving when the player characters are around. You know, if your player characters go off in the wild for 3 weeks and then they come back to the village from what they began, like people didn't just freeze. You know, that's a very video gamey thing to do. Like you play Skyrim, and it's like the NPC do nothing until the characters show up, and then all of a sudden they start acting up. Like, oh, it just like happened that the dragon attacked the village just as the moment and as you show up. You know, if you had spent days and days doing something else before going to that village, well, the dragon attack would have like happened day and days. And it's almost like I know some people talk about that with the quantum golem, where you plan the golem encounter, and if the characters go left, they're gonna encounter the golem. If the character go right, they're gonna encounter the golem. You know, like we don't do that. We talk about not doing that. We do also promote the no prep, because you want to you're not coming to the table with a story plan. You don't want to run your players and the player's character through something that you already like. We don't do the railroad thing. It is about you let the player the player decide where the characters want to go, what they want to do, and you have to do the on the fly GMing. Yeah, Rick confirmed there. Yeah. Moving role play, stay in characters and mechanics under the hood, roll only when needed. Yeah, exactly. The best part of the interview was Victor Renting. Victor is always like an interesting character. He's a funny guy. And yeah, so we do rely on players' contribution. We're not narrative. We're not like we're accused of being like story gamers sometimes when we say that. Like we care about the narrative of the story more than just like the rules. But we're not story gamer in the sense that we have like a story plan. No, the story emerge through play, and the world emerge through play. You know, I talked about that before. If you go to a medieval village, I'm not gonna have like a medieval village plan. You know, like, well, you go to a medieval village, they're gonna be like normal medieval village thing. And if the player decide that they want to go see the, like, I don't know, the barrel maker, forgot the name. Is it a cooper? If the player want to go see the cooper, yeah, it's reasonable there's a cooper in town because it's a normal town, and a cooper would be normal in such a town. So you go when you see the cooper. Now all of a sudden there's a cooper there. I didn't have to plan that, but by what the player wants to do, what the player wants their character to do, that define the world. If they want to go see the witch or the wizard of the village, and we play in a fairly low magic setting, no, then there's not going to be one there. Hello, Shadow. How are you doing? Nice. Thank you for joining. And yeah, so basically there's a lot of idea that we share, and oftentimes like we're being almost like strawman that we want is like acting and doing like the method acting, and yeah, I guess like that would be fair because you want to stay in character. But it's not about like going through a play. We don't like actors and like theater kids, like theater people. They have a play that they want to go through and they reenact. They don't like, you know, we call them actor, but they don't really act. They reenact something that is predefined, predetermined. What we're thinking about is acting, like making an action. You know, that's what you want to do. Your character act. You're not just like a passive spectator in the. Because if you were to do like story game where there's like a pre-planned story, a pre-planned model that we go through, the player are kind of passive. They're just like taken into a ride. And you listen to those people talk, and that's also true sometimes when I talk with other old school gamer that are OSR or not or whatever. We can see that we have like very different play style. And with the BrOSR guy, it's almost even more obvious. Like they're a lot into this wargaming stuff, and yeah, it's true. D&D has its origin in wargaming. Some of us kind of move past that, and I'm not saying that like as a disparaging thing. You know, if you're still enjoying that, like that's fine for you. Go ahead. But some of them, that's not what we're looking for. Like those display style of always going to the dungeon and spending like session after session and evolving into domain play. And basically like the low level or like a prelude to the war game that's gonna happen later. And they talk a lot about like this. Well, they say like Braunstein. I think it should be called like the Braunstein play, which is a comes from a war game scenario, but I think it should be pronounced Braunstein or Braunstein because it's a fictional German town, not some like Jewish guy. So Braunstein play, which is a Napoleonic war game campaign. That's, to me, is not what I'm going to role playing for. If I want to do that, I'm going to play a war game. And a lot of the things they talk makes sense in a war game perspective. Like this one time and the weather changing and the season changing. That's what you do if you don't do a campaign. If you like, but a campaign, people that play war game, a war game campaign is very different than in the mindset than what we want to do as role player. Because the origin of the war game concept is you ask the question, if I was the general in that battle, like you reenact a historical battle and you say, if I was, or if I were, if I were, if I was the general in that battle, would the outcome have been different? While when you play and when you role play, you're not asking the question, if I was in that situation, how would I act? You're asking, okay, if I was this character in this situation, how would I act? You know, if I've been playing Pendragon lately, and what I don't want like my players to be like a Yankee in King's Arthur's court. You know, like they come there with their modern mindset and their modern idea. No, I want you to emerge yourself, and I want you to change your mindset and to you're not you in the world of Pendragon. You're a character from the world of Pendragon in the world of Pendragon, and act accordingly. So, and they also like for the BrOSR, what it seems to be is like the focus is on the world. Like for us that are like more narrative player, I would call, we focus on the characters. And BrOSR are gonna expect at some point that you're gonna have like a PvP. Like for us, PvP can happen, but it's not expected. So there's difference like that. It's like we're playing a very different type of game. Hey, Dave Mills. Nice seeing you. I don't recognize your name. Sorry if I don't remember everybody, but maybe it's your first time here. If it is, welcome. So yeah, I'm talking about like we're narrative players, but we don't have a pre-planned story, like I mentioned. We discover the story through play and the world through play. Oh, you're new. Welcome then. We are more focused on the characters, like, and it doesn't mean that the characters have plot armor. Not at all, because it's still a game. You still want to see what's going to happen, and the character can fail, and we still have rules. And I'm not like against house ruling. I think you should understand the rules before you change them, and understand why the rules are made like that. And granted, if you play different game nowadays, modern games, a lot of them are basically have like no playtest, and you can tell, you can show some of them are very badly designed. So there's that too. So then maybe sometimes there needs some fixing. Maybe at a different time people used to test the rules a little more, so maybe the rules are there for a reason. So that's what I'm saying. If you want to change a rule, just don't do it because you think it's cooler that way. Like you have to understand where the rules come from, what are the implications of the rules. If you're not willing to do that work, maybe just try it raw for a while. I would agree with that. And yeah, what we want to do in the story, we don't want to do the mundane. You know, like we have characters, and what we want to figure out, we go to the story of those characters, and we want to focus on what's interesting in the lives of those characters. And they were mentioned. They were mentioned in the stream. Like, yeah, people play modern D&D, and they go through level 1 to 20, and then the in-game time passed like a month. And I don't like that. I talked about that before as well. I think that the 1 to 20 leveling up progression in D&D is too long, and that the power gap between level 1 and level 20 is too big. I like it. I like when the power gap is crunched down, and I like to character development go from other way than just like getting more stronger and more powerful, like story-based character development. I would say, and I also like when there's downtime, when there are like, you know, people travel, or their travels take time, or you need to heal. Healing take times. You know, I do like a lot of downtime. Somebody was joking, and I think it was in Guild server, like, oh, because I play Pendragon, people say, oh, Pendragon is not one time, it's 152 time, because like you play one session and then a year pass, and it's true. But I like that. I like, because then you can see, oh, what happened that was interesting in that life of that character on that year. And they don't have like 10,000 adventure every year, but every year maybe something a little special happens. Sometimes a year is not so special. So like Harvey say, you can realize Pundit as a bad character. Dude was retweeting his own shit, attacking TBE over and over. Did's thirsty for attention. I think, yeah, well, I've been open, like I have a gripe with the Pundit. I had one for a long time. So now that shit's come up, I'm not too surprised. Hello, Crafting Gamer. How you doing? So yeah, and that's what I want to say. Like, it's very different style of play. And this wargaming style of play is not one that interests me that much. You know, there's like, they talk about being like the GM being an impartial referee, and in a way they do a lot of their game they're doing is oftentimes player versus the world, or versus the game rules, in a way, because you have all those tables to determine what happened and stuff like that. And you did the players, and especially when you do those midweek, when you say like, oh, okay, a week pass in game time, a week pass in session time, and then you're going to plan stuff by post, then you're not in your mindset of your character. It's really you as a player planning stuff up. And it's evident when Jeffro talk about those campaigns, when, oh, there was this guy, he was making all those plans, he almost never came to the session until we came to his ex. Yeah, that wasn't character playing, that was like player playing. And I don't care that much for this, like, player versus the rules or player versus the mechanic of the game. I like, for me, the GM and the players, or it's a collaborative experience. Yes, the players provide a position, but what we're both working for the same goal of discovering what's happening to those characters, having an interesting story emerge for those characters. So they do need conflict, they do need opposition. They cannot always win. They cannot be super powerful. There need to be tension. It needs that because if we know from the get-go they're gonna win, that's not an interesting story. So we have this. It's a very different way of seeing the relation between GM and players. I'm not an impartial referee. I am partial. I'm partial toward an interesting narrative emerging. And I don't care for them in play. Like I said, it's not what I'm looking for RPGs. If I want to play like diplomacy, I'm going to play diplomacy. You know what I mean? I'm not opposed to it to some extent. And if you want to do that, like I said, that's fine. It's just not my cup of tea, personally. And I don't want to go down in the dungeon week after week. You know, at some point, I just want to move on to something else. I like the intrigue game. I like exploring idea and question, like ideology or philosophy. Like, what if this kingdom took this kind of philosophy to its logical conclusion? You know, I like to answer questions like that, and we see and we evolve. And I like to focus out on verisimilitude and have people act in normal way, and you confront them to those different ideas, different way of human organization. That's the kind of question I'm interested in. That's what I find interesting in RPG. That, and yeah, becoming someone else. Like, I'm not playing like little toy soldier. I try to like I said before, hijack my own mindset and think in a way that somebody that's not me would think, and feel different thing. I feel like at some point, like, I don't care that much. Oh, it was cool, we killed that thing. Like, I was talking Monday about like fixing dragon and making dragons matter and having them like represent something. That's because I want this. I care about this symbolic aspect, about this emotional side too that you can have as well. It's not just like, oh, it's cool, we killed this big monster, we made a lot of damage. That's not what I find cool. I find cool about like, oh, that was very interesting. Like, and we kind of like it's almost like in the game, I like it to be some dialectic. We use the game to explore idea, to look for some truth. It doesn't have to be all the time. It's not super serious and stuff like that. Like, it's not always like, oh, we're philosophing here, right? No, we're still playing a game, but there need to be like some sort of that aspect there, that explore some truth about the human condition, about politics, about sometimes theology, whatever. It's like, I like it to go a little deeper, and sometimes about yourself as well, because even though you become somebody else, there's always like a part of you that remains. So, and oftentimes your characters are you tweak your setting differently, so that's all right as well. And I don't really care for the always on mode either. Like, okay, we're gonna come to the table, I'm gonna think about the game between the game, but like, don't fucking message me every way. Oh, like, during this week I want to do this thing. Yeah, you know what, like, tell me when we're at the table, when we're together, when we're role playing. I'm not like an accountant that I'm gonna move some beads here and say, oh, okay, so you went to sell. So some stuff you can just say like, oh, okay, during we have downtime, we're gonna get back the session. Like, the next session is gonna be like 2 weeks later when you're healed or when you travel there or whatever, and then you can tell me what you're doing during this time. That I don't care, but I don't want it to be, oh, you show up when you show up, and you can still do stuff if you don't show up. Nah. I don't like also when you go in a dungeon and every level at the dungeon you go deeper, get harder and stuff like that. I like my place to make sense. I like my place to have a lot of verisimilitude. If like the dungeon, and we use dungeon oftentimes like to mean like any self-contained place of adventure. It can be like like a forest, or it can be like a desert, or whatever. It doesn't matter, like a mountain. It doesn't have to be like an underground place. But if like there's those level, and every level you go down is get harder and stuff like that, it does feel very gamey, and I don't care much for that. I want my place to make sense. I want my place to be believable, and also I don't like the goofiness. Like Victor was talking about that. Oh, I don't want to play with I don't want to have a character in my game that is called like Dildo Shaggins or whatever. I agree with that. I don't like that. I don't care for the constant joke, the constant 80s pop culture reference, the self-referential humor. You know what I mean? Like, keep it toned down. Like, it doesn't have to be like super serious, and like, yeah, you can joke once in a while, but like, there's a balance there. Like, I don't want the player to try to steal the spotlight by being the funniest guy around the table. That's not where we're there for. If you got something that is relevant, but like, I see that often. Like, you look at Last Plane sometime, it's just like constant pop culture reference after pop culture reference. I'm not fucking watching Family Guy here. You know what I mean? I hate this kind of humor. Anyway, that's what I want to talk about today. I feel like we're there is something that we agree with the BrOSR and with the OSR people, as I would call it. I don't want to call it a narrative gamer, more narrative for a role player, you'd say. But if we say role player, it's kind of like it's kind of snobbish, because like, well, everybody that engage in role-playing games technically should be role player, or maybe some are just like gamers. I don't know, but there is something we agree upon, and but I find like I hate straw manning. I hope I didn't came as a dishonest with my representation of the BrOSR here. If I got something wrong, it's like out of ignorance. It's not out of malice of trying to be lazy. I try to address people like argument for what they are, and I'd like to have the same sympathy for us, like, like the same treatment when we talk about would it be like, and I don't like the internet eel kind of thing, like trashing people and stuff like that. I don't care for it. But if you present the way like, oh, that's the way I like to play the game, that's the way I think the game is fun for me, or it's enjoyable, it's interesting, maybe you should try it. Right? If it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. And of course, like the way I play a game is not going to be for everybody. You know, if you cannot answer the question like, oh, how would you feel if you didn't have breakfast yesterday morning? If that question like confuses you, you're not going to be able to play the game the way I do. And then there's another game for you. That's all right. But then like, don't go around like making accusation like, oh, you're just like oh, you just want to make those, go to those story, and you just have like run the player and do the, you know, it's like, fuck, man, we need to stop with the straw manning. Everyone fucking, that's my message of the day. Anyway, that's what I talked about today. It's my time. I passed 25 minutes, so I don't know if Angar is gonna go live. Do you know Shadow? If he is, go watch Angar. He's a cool guy, and he's fun to watch. Do those squash say it's playing, but it's serious playing, like Bruce Lee said. Yeah, exactly. I like this. Like that's the thing. Like I want to say, the BrOSR takes the rules and the game mechanics seriously, but are very goofy with the narrative. I like to take the narrative seriously more than the rules, in a way. You know, the rules, like I much rather like you preserve the narrative and wave off a rule than the other way around. Hello, Jonathan Rock. I was about to log off. If you just join in, so if you catch at the end there. Also, you hope so, but you're not sure. All right. Nobody played AD&D the same way back in the days. That's an argument that's often made, and it's still true today. Nobody plays in the same way, and that's all right. You have to find you have to find the table that's right for you. All right, I'm gonna end the broadcast now. Thank you for joining, and thank you for people that watch later on the video on demand. Have a good day all, and take care.